So I was wandering the aisles of Michael's a few weeks ago and happened upon this finger looping fun, ball of fun. It's called Loop It, and it's finger looping knitting, yarn for knitting. And I was immediately intrigued because I've never learned how to knit, mainly because I'm left-handed and my mother's right, and she was never able to teach me. So this definitely intrigued me, so I decided I'm gonna get a ball of it and see, or a skein of it, and see what it's like. And since then, I have become kind of obsessed with it. It's so much fun. I've heard that a lot of people, their kids get into it because it's so easy. You don't need any knitting needles. All I really need is a little pair of scissors, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to do a really quick amateur tutorial on how to finger knit. And I will say, like I said in the beginning, I am not a knitter, so this is a completely amateur's look at how to finger loop. But I've actually ended up making a big pink blanket out of this, and it turned out so cute. So just the first thing you want to do is, this is basically one long thing, but they've looped it every few, a couple of inches with just a piece of thread. So at the beginning, you just want to make a tail by clipping through a couple of the loops on the end. So one, and then I'll do one more. You just want to tail at the end so that you can weave it into the blanket later. And whoops, that was a little too close. No big deal. I will do one more. And you want to be able to weave the tail into the blanket when you're done. But until you're done, you can just keep the tails as they are, and you don't even have to deal with them, which is kind of nice. Okay, so now you have your tail on this end, and you're ready to decide the length of your project. Your first line is just going to be however long you want your project to be. Something small, I guess, would be maybe a baby blanket. But for demonstration, we're going to pretend it's something really small, like a pot holder, and just do a little section for you. You can count, and I'm sure patterns talk about counting, but I'm just going to eyeball it. So let's say I'm going to do it this long, and this is going to be my last loop of the first line right there. I'm going to take this extra yarn over and kind of place it along the top. It just makes it easier to follow. So that was my last one. And the next loop in the yarn is going to be my first thing that I'm going to start knitting with. So I'm going to put that one through the one right next to it. Then if it's over on top, you can start to see how easy it is to just match up the loops. So this is going to be my line of loops I'm working on. This is the original. So you're just going to put it through the loop and pull it up. And so the first line is the hardest to get started, and once you get it kind of flattened out, then it goes very smoothly. So through and up, and through and up. That's what I have to tell myself in my head, because sometimes I want to put the wrong loop in the wrong way. So I go through and up, and you see we're starting to get something that looks like knitting. The trickiest part is to make sure you're on the right loop. So if I were to do this loop and this, or if I didn't see this one, it was kind of underneath, and I did this one, I will have skipped a loop and it will show. So just make sure you have the very next loop in each. So through and up, and through and up. Teaching people how to knit is a lot harder than it seems, even though this is probably the simplest knitting there is. So you can kind of see that we're getting part of our project to kind of look like something. Through and up, and then I have a couple more here. We'll just go to the end, then I'll show you how to turn it over or to start going another loop. It seems like it would be harder, but literally it's just putting loops into other loops. No needles, no nothing required. And then, oops, see I did and through and up. And there you have your first 2 lines of whatever you're making. We'll say it's a pot holder. That is all it is to make another line, and then you just start over. And I like to put it right on top again so I can see which loop goes where. So this was my last one. I'm going to take the next loop on this and I'm going to go through and up. Nothing fancy, you're just continuing on, but you're going the opposite direction. Through and up. And even if your loops get a little twisted, this is so textured that it just will seem like it's part of the pattern. Very, very forgiving. Next one on top, next one on bottom, through and up. And I'm going to finish this last one, and then I'm going to show you a couple little things about finishing it and how to make it like look a little different too if you want to. I only know one looping stitch, so I know that if you went to Red Heart, which is the brand that this loop, finger looping knitting is, you can find lots of tutorials and patterns. This is the only one I know right now, but I've been able to enjoy making something out of it with just this one thing. The only thing I've ever done that's kind of been a mistake is I've missed a loop and I've gone to the next one, and then when I'm looking at it later I see one is sticking out. It's so easy to pull out, you just literally just pull it out. But at the same time, it doesn't unravel easily unless you were to pull on it because it's so textured, it just holds on to itself. And that one, and here I have one more, goes up and through. And there you have almost 3, well, 2 rows, and then there's a third one. If you want to, what I did on my blanket is I decided to do like 4 rows like this, and then I would just simply flip it over and see how it's a different look on the back. I think that's, I don't know, knitting and purling or something like that. But so after 4 rows, I just turn it over and then start doing it again. And it just gives it a different texture every 4 rows. So that's kind of fun. Just make sure you have the right loop, this one and this one. And so on and so forth. Just make sure you have the right loop. Sometimes they get kind of scrunched under. You want to make sure it's the next one. Okay, and then you just keep going like that. The last thing I'll tell you is that each time you change colors or even just yarns, all you do is the same thing. You just make a tail and then just start again. As a matter of fact, I'll show you how to do that because it might be, let's say I ended with like this skein of yarn ended right here. I'm just going to cut a couple of the loops. And just kind of put it off to the side, and you literally just take another one. Again, you need a tail though. So clip a couple of the loops, and you just start from where you left off. So this was my last one. There we go, that was the last one. And the next one, I'm just going to go through the next one. So it's like it stops right here. Here's a tail and here's a tail. But as you keep going, it will all stay together. And then when you're done, you can do something with those tails and hide them. So that's all it is to changing to another color or to starting a new skein. Pretty cool, huh? And then when you want at the end to hide these little tails, all you do is weave them with your fingers in and out a few of the stitches. It's just so, like I said, so textured that you won't even notice that you have this extra piece. And then after a few, I don't know, 3, 4, maybe 5, you can just snip it off. That wasn't very careful because I kind of didn't space it right, but look, you can't even really tell, and it will stay. So there you go. That's how to finger knit, taught by a very amateur, and all I can say is if I can do it, you can do it. So give it a try. I just wanted to show you one more thing. This is the blanket that I have been working on. It's almost done, but I wanted to do something a little special to it to give it a little more beauty. But first I wanted to show how the difference in the stitching looks on a completed blanket. So I would do, I think this is like 8 or 10 in this kind of stitch, and then I'd flip it over, do the same looping, but it looks like this on this side, and then flip it back over, and so on and so forth down to the bottom of the blanket. Then I thought it might be fun to just, I got these little felt applique flowers. I think I got them on Etsy. They're just felt, and I thought I would just sew these on in a random pattern just to kind of make it look even cuter. But there's so many things you could do. I'm sure you could think of lots of creative ideas. And maybe next time I would even like do a couple different colors of yarn, you know, alternating each section. But for now, I thought I'd stick with one color because this is literally my first project using this stuff. And I know I see many more in my future.